Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Stevie Nicol and Shaka here. Slightly a little later on in the programme, Adrian Healey will be joining us. He's been with Real Madrid on their first full day of pre-season in LA. Plus, we'll be talking about the size of Stevie's feet. However, we start with Dani Alves. The size of his bank account will be a lot bigger over the next couple of years after he signs for PSG. And he said, if Pep Guardiola and Manchester City feel hurt, I'm sorry. I've come here to be a champion. Gab Marcotti is with us. Gab, he's gone to Paris not only to be a champion, but to become very, very rich, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, look, we know all these guys make a ton of money, but the offer that Paris Saint-Germain made him is really quite extraordinary. It's effectively twice what Manchester City offered him. Which was a small bump over what he was earning at Juventus. But we're talking a commitment of about £24 million over the next 2 seasons, something like £230,000 a week. When you look at Dani Alves' age, when you look at the fact that I think he started something like 15 Serie A games last season for Juventus, plus obviously a bunch in the Champions League, it really is quite an extraordinary statement. And you can see why Pep Guardiola feels somewhat let down, because he did feel as if he had this in the bag.
Doing the math, gentlemen, $15 million a year. Wow. Dani Alves will be earning over the next 2 years in the French capital. Did Manchester City, should they have pursued this harder? Should they have offered him that sort of money? Is he worth it?
My goodness. I mean, if Manchester City and Pep Guardiola want to have a successful season this year, and I think they're under some pressure to do that, then they have to pull out all the stops. And if it means you overpay somebody, then you do it. And when it's Dani Alves we're talking about, you know that going forward, he's going to give you so much that you don't have. So if it had been me, I would have pushed the boat out and I would have given him the money, because he's going to make you so much better. But
Gab brought up a really good point, Shaq. You take a look at his stats for last season. He only started 17 games for Juventus in Serie A. He really caught the headlines and really caught the eye, didn't he, for his performances in the Champions League.
Towards the end of the season.
If you're going to pay this sort of money, you want someone who's going to be playing week in, week out.
Correct. I think Dani Alves, when he's fit, for my money, is the best right back in the game today. But given his age, I don't see how you make this a two-year commitment. If I'm that desperate as Manchester City, if I'm Manchester and I'm desperate and I want Dani Alves, I can't commit, certainly not at that level, more than 12 months. And I said during the course of last season that as I looked at City, they had more players, more outfield players over the age of 35 by some distance than anybody else. And I felt that you would see Pep Guardiola start to bring the average age of this team down. You saw that with the signing of Gabriel Jesus. I felt that was the direction that Pep Guardiola was going in. Now, Dani Alves bucks that trend, and given the money, again, it would surprise me to see Guardiola make that commitment over 24 months.
Go on, Gab.
Dan, no, there's another element to this as well. And if you look at Manchester City's squad, they have to basically bring in players who qualify as under the Premier League's homegrown player rule or association-trained player rule. And obviously, they've been pursuing, they will continue to pursue Kyle Walker. And I think this comes into play as well. It's one thing to bring in Dani Alves short-term at a price you're comfortable with, and bring in Walker as well and say, look, we'll use Dani Alves in some games and figure out a way, he can maybe play in midfield or whatever. I think it's quite another one to lock him up for 2 years, because at that point, Kyle Walker is going to say, all right, well then, if I'm going to come, how much are you going to pay me? Why are you paying that guy all that money? And is he going to start all the big games and I'm just going to sit on the bench for 2 years? So I think that was part of the dynamic as well. Also consider, Dani Alves did not leave Juventus on good terms. He did not leave Barcelona on good terms. He is somebody who can also be a little bit, at times, destabilizing in the dressing room. So when you put all those factors into the mix, they were willing to take a gamble on him if it was going to be at a price they were comfortable with and more of a short-term thing where maybe they could even write off the second season. But if you're talking 2-year commitment at those numbers, it just simply wasn't going to happen.
Gab, we like the line, don't we, in the media, the next Pele, the next Maradona, the next Makelele. Sergio Aurier was supposed to be the next Dani Alves, but Dani Alves has come in and will now take his position. So what does that mean now for Aurier's future?
Well, it's funny because in some ways, Aurier, since he arrived at Paris, his people have been hawking around to try to get him elsewhere. Obviously, he's been linked to Arsenal in the past. He's had a lot of interest in the Premier League. A lot of teams are basically put off by let's face it, his behavior. This is a guy who's been suspended several times. He likes to go on Periscope and say things he probably shouldn't say.
So he is the new Dani Alves.
Yeah, he's a less sensible Dani Alves. Listen, when you've won as much as Dani Alves, you can probably get away with more things than you can if you're Sergio Aurier. I think at this point, they're going to have to move him on. And I think, if his head is screwed on right, I think he'd be a tremendous pickup for a lot of clubs.
Let's talk about one of Dani Alves' national teammates then, shall we, Gab? Paulinho. Of course, brilliant for Brazil, went to Spurs, didn't do much, went to China to earn a lot of money, and is now being linked to Barcelona. You think it would be straightforward. Barcelona come knocking, you leave China, thank you very much, goodbye. But it doesn't seem to be as straightforward as this.
No, because you're dealing with Guangzhou Evergrande, who they're owned by the richest or second richest man in China, Jack Ma of Alibaba, and they've made it very clear. No, the transfer window closes on Friday. Paulinho's not moving during the season, and of course they're in the midst of their season, and they feel that they wouldn't have time to bring in an adequate replacement either. It is a remarkable story when you look at the absolute amount of abuse Paulinho received in England, the way he was written off by everybody. Everybody laughed. He went to China. In the meantime, he's been a mainstay for the Brazilian national team, who've been absolutely devastating over the past year or so. And talk about having the last laugh if he does end up in Barcelona. He's made noise as he wants the deal done. I think if Barcelona upped their offer to something in perhaps the 35 million euro range, I think this deal can be done because nobody wants to have an unhappy player who wants to be elsewhere.
Meanwhile, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, top scorer in the Bundesliga, heavily linked to PSG earlier on in the summer. Now, obviously, isn't moving to France. Could he be moving to Chelsea? And the reason we say this is because, look at this. He posted a picture sitting on the steps of what I assume is a private jet. Hashtag mood of the day. Now, what is the mood of the day, Stephen? Look, he's wearing blue, so therefore, Gab, I assume he's going to Chelsea. It's done and dusted, isn't it?
It looks as though he doesn't know where he's going. It looks as though he's sitting there trying to figure out where to fly the plane to.
Looking at him.
He's sitting like that and going, where's this thing going?
He's wearing blue, though, Gab.
Yeah, this is almost an homage to Paul Pogba last summer. Those pictures of him on Instagram where they were sort of in black and white, but he was wearing the red high tops and I think the red hat. Look, this is a situation which has really spun out of control for Borussia Dortmund because Aubameyang's people have really been they've basically been pitching him everywhere. There are supposedly offers in China. He is willing to take him, but frankly, given that again the transfer window closes very, very soon, I don't see how that's going to happen. I would imagine he would much rather stay in Europe. There's been suggestions of AC Milan as well. I think they would really struggle to come up with the money. Maybe this is also a way of trying to prod PSG back into action. You put two and two together and you say Chelsea, but frankly, I think from Conte's perspective, he would not be an ideal fit. Could he make it work with Aubameyang? Of course he could. But I still think that Conte's priority at this stage would still be somebody like Morata, or possibly, if they can get the price down, Andrea Belotti.
PSG on Instagram. Oh, he's on the plane, quick! Make a bid now.
I don't get this Instagram.
Quickly, does he fit in Chelsea? Or you don't get Instagram in general? Or
well, in general,
right.
and no, he's not a direct replacement for Costa. That's the question.
Stevie?
No, I don't see it at all.
Stevie's not on Instagram.
These are mine.
Instagram.
I don't get this.
Coming up after the break, Adrian Healey will be joining us. He'll be giving us all the latest as Real Madrid touch down in LA for their pre-season. Welcome back. As promised, Adrian Healey with us, of course, in LA all week, Aid, following Manchester United. And now, of course, Real Madrid, who touched down last night.
Well, indeed, Dan, and of course I've had to up my game because of that. We're now on Rodeo Drive, otherwise known as where Mrs. Dan Thomas likes to do her shopping, I believe. But
yes.
You're correct. Real Madrid got in late last night. They had their first training session this morning at UCLA, and it's quite the scene at UCLA, let me tell you, because it's all set up for Real Madrid on one side of the campus area, in one area of the field. There's Manchester United 200 yards away in a different area, all fenced off. And in between those two galactic giants, we have some more soccer being played, some under 5, under 6 and under 7 UCLA soccer camp participants. So we got all these kids perhaps dreaming of being the next Paul Pogba and Gareth Bale, completely oblivious to the fact that the real things are just either side of them. It's one of those only in America situations, Dan.
We saw there some of the pictures of Real Madrid training. Aid, one key figure missing, though. No Cristiano Ronaldo. Is it true he's been given a month off?
Well, that is the official word from club officials, and of course that was couched in some mystery. What does a month actually mean? Was it a month from the end of the Confederations Cup? He last played on June the 28th, of course, for Portugal. But just recently, 10-15 minutes ago, I spoke with tour organisers, and they are very confident that Ronaldo will in fact be here in LA when they first play in this city. That is on July the 26th against Manchester City. They expect him to arrive the day before, so probably won't be playing much part in that game. But of course, that means he'll be in the US potentially for the Clasico on the 29th and the MLS All-Star game too. So
looking at the schedule, as you mentioned, Ronaldo will be a late arrival. No Sergio Ramos either at the moment.
No, pretty much everyone else here for Real Madrid, the European champion under-21 players, will be a late arrival. Sergio Ramos, as I mentioned, the big exception, and no one's given us an official reason for that. Ramos won't be here until Sunday, so that's July the 16th. My hunch is he's just avoiding the critical eye of one Stevie Nicol for an extra few days.
I think that's fair enough, justified as well for the Real Madrid captain. Adrian, thank you very much for everything today. You can follow a lot more of Aid's adventures in LA over on ESPNFC.com. Lukaku, of course, joining up with Manchester United over the last couple of days. He's been getting to know his teammates, and his teammates have been getting to know the size of his feet. This is what Juan Mata had to say. Welcome, Lukaku, a.k.a. biggest boots ever. And this got me thinking, who was renowned for his big feet back in the day? It was, of course, the one and only Stevie Nicol.
Wow.
Look at this. Nothing to do with the camera angle. You write about this in your book, Stevie. You used to have parents writing to you who had kids with big feet asking where they can buy boots.
Well, everybody else used to get fan mail. I used to get parents wanting to know where they could buy size 13 and 14 boots.
Wow. Big feet, though, Stevie.
Aye, they were. They don't seem to be now. Everybody's like 16s and 17s. It's mental.
Shaq, you must have big feet as well.
I'm a 13.
Wow.
That's a respectable 13.
For a goalie.
What about you, Dan?
Pardon?
Hey, what size are you? Come on, Dan.
What size are you wear, Dan?
8. Inferiority complex, no way. For a lot more on the latest transfers, moving on extraordinarily quickly. Shut up. Mark Hopkins breaking everything down you need to know over on the website. There'll be more transfer talk coming after the break. Is Ross Barkley heading to Manchester United? Welcome back. Gab, let's talk Ross Barkley, shall we? Less than a year left now on his contract. What's going on?
Yeah, this is one of those situations where, you know, if we're Alexis Sanchez, you know, people were freaking out. It's Ross Barkley. And I think further muddying the waters is the fact that Everton went to play a friendly abroad in Tanzania, and they did not include him. He did not go along as part of the trip. Officially, he's recovering from a groin injury. People in Liverpool suggesting that, in fact, since he's been training fine, it's a phantom injury, that something could be afoot. if you look at the money that Everton have spent, you wonder if at some point they might want to get some of that back, perhaps by moving Barkley on, if he's not going to commit to a longer-term contract, because obviously, losing him as a free agent in June would be highly problematic.
Tanzania, Gab. How did you say it?
Apparently, yes.
How do you say it? Was your pronunciation right or was mine right?
It's Tanzania. It's where Zanzibar is.
You said it in a very posh way.
Said Tanzania.
You said it in a very posh way. Right. Let's focus back on Ross Barkley, gentlemen. What do you think?
Ross Barkley needs to move. Where to? I'm not so sure, but he needs to be playing. Ross Barkley has all the tools to be a fantastic football player. Unfortunately, Ross Barkley right now, or certainly in his time at Everton, has just done little bits in games that keep you hanging on.
Right.
You keep thinking he's going to produce. He's got no consistency in his game whatsoever. And by the sounds of it, Koeman's pretty much given up on him. So he needs to get away and get.
Would you want him at Liverpool, for example?
No, I wouldn't. If I'm Jurgen Klopp, I'm buying players I can trust. And I guess that sums Ross Barkley up. You can't trust him.
Koeman and Barkley had a little bit of a falling out towards the end of the season, and you wonder if that's kind of made each of their minds up. But I'm with Steve on this. And you think back to Ross Barkley when he first burst on the scene.
Sure.
Really had all the tools, all the makings of a fantastic footballer, but that was probably his most consistent spell at his earliest. You've not seen it since. I think he's actually regressed over the last 18 months, and a move on the cards. I'm with Steve. A step back to take two forward. I can't see one of the big clubs taking that chance on Ross Barkley.
Meanwhile, what about Joe Hart? Gab, obviously, still a Manchester City player. There doesn't seem to be any sort of expectation that he'll be staying at City. Went to Serie A last year. West Ham has been linked to the England goalkeeper. Is this really going to happen?
Yeah, they'd be talking again. Speculation it would be a loan move, obviously, with Ederson in as well as Claudio Bravo. He just doesn't fit at City, and he doesn't want to be a backup because there's a World Cup coming up. I think it would be a good fit in many ways. Although again, you feel a little bit, and I know this is West Ham keepers is Xhaka's area of expertise, but certainly with Adrian and Randolph, you wonder if. Is this really a position you need to upgrade?
Xhaka, if ever there was a holy grail of a question to ask you, it is the West Ham goalkeeping situation.
Yes, I think West Ham do need an upgrade. I think Randolph a little bit inconsistent. I think Adrian as well, as good as he was last season, Randolph was the number one choice to finish off this season at least. And so question marks there. But at the same time, Joe Hart also linked with another of my former clubs in Newcastle United, who themselves have had goalkeeping issues, injury problems, lack of consistency over the last couple of seasons. I don't think Joe Hart will have any shortage of takers. The trouble is he still sees himself as England's number one, and I can't see any of, again, the big boys in the Premier League taking that chance on Joe Hart.
It's fascinating that the clubs you've mentioned, no disrespect to them, but this is a man who's won the Premier League.
Exactly.
England's number one, yet his stock has fallen so drastically over the last 12 months. Has he deserved to go through this?
I don't feel his time in Torino did him any service at all. Desperately inconsistent again. And if you are looking for a top-level goalkeeper, if you are going to take that chance and spend the kind of money, at least on wages that Joe Hart would clearly command, you need a lot more consistency. Probably, again, you look at the big boys in the Premier League, probably the team with the greatest need would be Liverpool, but that's the same criticism with Simon Mignolet. Not consistent enough. Do you go from one very talented goalkeeper who's inconsistent to another? I don't think so.
I think I asked you about this, Ross Barkley, but would you want Joe Hart at Liverpool?
Do you know what? Initially, I think you asked me this a few months ago,
yeah,
and I said no. But I've been thinking about it, and you know what? Joe Hart, up until Bravo came to City, was one of the most respected and consistent goalies in the league. He's had a horrible 12 months, but you know what? The guy's a good goalkeeper, and he just needs a little bit of TLC, and he'll be back to his best. So I think now I would maybe take a chance.
Really?
Yeah.
You'd have him over Mignolet?
Yeah. I would take a chance.
OK, then, just a reminder, ESPN FC with you throughout the summer, with you 6 days a week to talk about all the latest transfer news. Gab, of course, with us throughout that time. We'll be asking Steve more players you'd like to see at Liverpool. Right then, Gold Cup. An interesting turn of events last night. Shaka, I feel like I need to go to you first to talk about the Florent Malouda situation. French Canea taking on Honduras.
Yeah.
This one would finish 0-0, but the score wouldn't really matter because Malouda played for France.
Yep.
He's not allowed to play, obviously, for any other national team.
According to FIFA rules. But FIFA don't recognize French Guiana as a member. Now, here's the whole thing. French Guiana are a French territory. According to France Football Federation statutes, you can play for French Guiana if the organizers allow it. It can't be in a FIFA-recognized competition. It has to be confederation level or below. But here's the thing. In CONCACAF rules, to qualify for the Gold Cup, you could win the Caribbean Football Union, which French Guiana are a member of. To qualify to participate for a country, it has to go to the CONCACAF Executive Committee, which has to approve it. So the CONCACAF Executive Committee approved Malouda to play for French Guiana in the Caribbean Football Championships, from which it qualified, but then turn around and say, you can't play in the Gold Cup, which makes no sense to me. It's either you're allowed to play from the qualifying level or you're not. Don't allow him to play at the qualifying stage if you're not going to allow him to play in the Gold Cup. Now you're left with a rather ridiculous situation. Honduras will probably be awarded a 3-0 win, even though the score finished 0-0. Malouda, who did not play against Canada won 4-2, so they only have a 2-goal differential. So now Canada will be up in arms, wondering, well, if French Guiana continue this, they might find themselves wrong side of goal difference. But at the same time, you've got a host of countries sitting in the Caribbean at home who would feel rightly that, hold on, if Malouda didn't play for French Guiana in the qualifiers, we could be there. It's an absolute mess.
What a Shaka, mess. This isn't the first time this has happened. Do you remember 2007, I believe, Guadeloupe? Who was it? Jocelyn Angloma.
Yep.
He was allowed to play back then. Same situation, was allowed to play back then. Why not now? Why is it different now?
But everyone knew that he wasn't allowed to play, yes? But so they just thought, oh, I don't care, stuff it. We're going to make him captain anyway.
My belief is French Guiana thinks we have a case to hear here, and we're going to take this all the way up to the Court of Arbitration of Sport, which makes no sense because by the time it gets there, the competition will be over regardless. So they lose their first game, think, well, you know, we don't know when next we're going to be playing on the CONCACAF level. Let's just put our best team out, even though our best team includes players who played in 2006 with 80 caps he has for France. It's not like he had one or two and one was a couple of friendlies. He got 80 caps
they need someone to hack his Wikipedia page.
And they're just like, well, we just put him in and we have a good... Because this is our only time ever being here, so let's just have a ball.
Wow.
But it's like everybody with egg on their face from the CONCACAF Executive Committee come all the way down.
Meanwhile, of course, another match tonight involving the US this time, taking on Martinique after that dreadful showing against Panama. This is the perfect response, isn't it? Perfect opponent that you want if you're Bruce Arena to go out there, score 5 or 6 and just make a little bit of a statement.
If it was that easy, I mean, they could definitely make or score 5 or 6 against
But it should be that easy, shouldn't it?
On paper, yes, but Martinique, you saw them play earlier, and they have some pieces that can absolutely cause some danger. So if you're the U.S., you need to show a different face, different showing. That display in front of 47,000 fans in Nashville was unacceptable. Simple as that. So there's going to be a lot of changes. Bruce Arena said there's going to be a lot of changes. So whoever steps on needs to do so and represent the United States in a manner that's dignified in this tournament.
Well, this is Martinique.
It's Martinique.
It's Martinique.
Anytime it's Martinique, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You go out there, you put the jersey on. You need to represent yourself in a dignified manner.
Sell a shake.
I'm back in Martinique.
For what?
Can Malouda play for Martinique?
I like the underdog story.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo!
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Welcome back. Gab, Atleti confirming today that Vitolo is their latest addition to their squad. Obviously, he won't be able to play until 2018. He'll go out on loan to Las Palmas for the first part of the season. You take a look at Vitolo joining the squad and also possibly Diego Costa as well in the future. And you think that Atleti maybe deserve a little more love than we gave them yesterday?
Yeah, look, it's Diego Simeone's last season. Apparently, they're moving into their new ground. They want to make it count, and I think this shows real ambition. I mean, the ambition was there before. Remember, they lost out on Lacazette because of the transfer ban. Instead, they're going to get Vitolo come January. We're talking about a very direct player, a very quick player, full Spanish international. They're spending, in the end, it's going to be around 40 million euros on him. And he's going to come in January. And if they're still in the Champions League at that stage, and you'd imagine that they will be, it's going to be like the cavalry coming in, especially if they also get Diego Costa. Yep. Remember, last season, they were a really tough out for everybody in Europe. And that was with all due respect, Fernando Torres playing up front, not really having a real center forward. Obviously, they'll have that on the break with Yannick Carrasco, Griezmann, Vitolo. This is a really scary team. And they've hung on to all their stars. They haven't lost anybody over the summer.
Gab is very much on the Atleti bandwagon. He makes a great point.
Yeah, but I mean, that's been way optimistic. Let's be honest. They've signed Vitolo from what they had last year.
Yeah.
And last year they struggled in La Liga, and they were decent in the Champions
Well,
League.
they lost to the winners.
Yeah, but they had good draws all the way through, pretty much. So, are they a good side? Yes. But are they going to win the Champions League? No. Are they going to win La Liga? No. Even if they get Costa, they're still not winning either of those two tournaments.
Shaka, the power rankings obviously is on vacation at the moment, but would Atleti be in the top 10?
Without question. Without question, Atletico Madrid being in the top 10. And the things that Stevie is saying about Atletico Madrid now is the things we've been saying about Atletico Madrid for the last 3 or 4 seasons. When they've won La Liga, when they've got to Champions League finals. Nobody ever seems to fancy Atletico Madrid, but they always find a way to get the job done. They always find a way to put noses out of place. I expect the exact same. They'll get out of the group stage, they'll get to the quarterfinals and be one of those teams that everybody says you don't want to play against.
Would they be in your top 10?
Yes.
I'll get back to you on that.
Oh, I say yes.
Stevie, that's a yes. Stubborn.
Well,
that's what you
got 3 in Spain.
Thank you very much, guys. Until tomorrow. Goodbye. Welcome into Extra Time. Thank you very much for your tweets. Let's start off with this one first. And Gab, I'm going to address it to you initially. Gab, my colleague with us as well. Do Bayern have a real chance to win the treble with the addition of James Rodriguez?
They had a chance to win the treble last year, and they'll have a chance to win it again this year. I don't think it's just James. I think some of the other pickups they made as well, Tolisso, Rudy, Sule. I think the squad is deeper. I think Ancelotti's got another year under his belt, and we've seen that in the past he's been good at squeezing out the best out of veteran players. I'm thinking of Robin and Ribery and Vidal as well, I think, at this stage. So you put those factors together, yeah, I think they're definitely in the mix, just as that they have been for the last couple of seasons.
Who do you love more, Carlo Ancelotti or Thomas Tuchel? Gab?
Oh, that's easy.
Carlo Ancelotti. I'll answer for you, Gab.
Don't even answer. You're right. You just roll your eyes, Gab.
Gab's a Tucanista.
No. He sends Ancelotti Valentine's Day cards.
Yeah. Oh.
I have a giant framed poster of Thomas Tuchel in my study.
No, you don't, Gab. Don't give us that. Okay, let's move on to the next question, shall we? Here it comes. I haven't got a bit of paper today, so I have to read it. Why are Chelsea City struggling in the transfer market when both have big money, great managers, great talent and Champions League to offer? I'm going to go to Gab again, boys. If
That's
you don't mind.
okay.
Because nobody likes to be ripped off, because everybody knows that they have a lot of money and they have positions they want to strengthen, and so they go and they quote them enormous prices. Look, this is the transfer market we're talking about, market being the operative word. When you go to a flea market, sometimes you get bargains by going and buying things early, and sometimes you're better off waiting until just before closing time. It's a negotiation. It's not something straightforward. It's not like going out there and just flicking a switch. So I think they'll get their signing. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. But it's not as if they're not signing players because nobody wants to come and play for the Premier League champions or nobody wants to go and play for Pep Guardiola. It's simply they want to be smart about how they go and they spend their money.
Let's talk Liverpool, shall we, Stevie?
Do we have to?
Yeah. What are the chances of Liverpool winning the Premier League? There's more with their current, back four and keepers.
How quickly do you want an answer?
I don't know. How quickly do you want to give an answer?
No chance.
Stevie, what are your expectations at the moment for Liverpool?
Right now, with the same squad, I mean, they've added Salah. That's about it, right? Try and get in the top four again. Unless they go signing players.
They've already qualified for the top four.
That's what Steve says every summer.
Well, you just asked me a question. What is the expectation? Right now, with the same squad, it's trying to get in the top four again.
Here's the mentality, though, surely, isn't it? Finish top four, that means we can attract better players, so therefore we can compete in the league and compete in the Champions League.
That's exactly what
So why isn't it happening?
Listen, Gab's just answered the question there about Chelsea and City. Maybe Liverpool are doing the same thing. People are trying to rip them off. They're maybe holding out. But my goodness, they need to start making a move. I mean,
what's it, July 12th now?
Yeah, I mean, the question about the back four, my goodness. I mean, James Milner, he ran his wee heart out, but he's not a left back.
He's not.
He's not good enough. And Lovren's not good enough. Matip has to stay fit. Klein's reliable, solid, decent. Mignolet finished the season well, but he could be inconsistent again the way he was previously. So other than that, the back four and the goalkeeping situation is looking fantastic.
Right now, it's looking like you and Craig are going to have that Sissoko conversation again.
Oh, my goodness.
Sissoko.
You own Sissoko, yeah? Was that just a loan to Palace last year?
Correct.
Oh, so he's back. Perfect.
So you can have that conversation.
All the problems are solved.
Have that conversation.
Sissoko's back.
Have that conversation again.
He did well for Palace, though, didn't he?
Yeah, but listen, it's okay. Sissoko is fine when all you ask him to do is go and charge into challenges, head the ball away, just do straightforward things. And at Palace, they were defensive. There was plenty of there was no spaces around them for people to get past them and make them look bad, and so he looked good.
Okay.
I should have never brought up Sissoko.
Right, Shaka. Now you've got to sort something out. Let's do this, shall we? The next question is about what should CONCACAF do to make teams take the Gold Cup more seriously?
The short answer to that is make it once every 4 years. That way teams have to put out, if you want to go to the Confederations Cup, you have to send your best team regardless. And that makes the competition, that raises the level of competition throughout.
Does this tournament make any money for anybody?
It makes a lot of money for US soccer. You play it twice a year. Even though stadiums are half filled, you get the TV rights twice a year. They're half filled.
Every other year.
Every other year, excuse me. So twice every cycle. All right, stadiums are half filled, but you do make up for it because it's twice every cycle. You then have this rather ridiculous playoff at the end, which US soccer sells for an extortionate amount of money and will get full stadiums regardless. So it makes US soccer an awful lot, and CONCACAF, an awful lot of money.
So forget the good of the game. It's all about the dough.
It is. And I think there's so much more that, even if you want to keep it, every 2 years, I think there's so much more that CONCACAF could do with this tournament. But that's for another day, Dan.
All right then, Shaq, it is. On the next edition of the show, of course, we'll be looking back at the US against Martinique. You can join us 6 p.m. Eastern on ESPN News.